What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are here with the final injury report of the week. Plus, we got a lot of Lions news to dive into today, and for the Bengals side as well. We have some updates with their guard situation, the running back situation. And for the Lions, we added another cornerback to the practice squad, a guy that we talked about a lot when it was draft time. So let's get it started.
Way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off, and we're going to stand up, and then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down. And on the way up, we're going to take your other kneecap, and we're going to get up, and then it's going to take 3 shots to get us down. And when we do, we're going to take another hunk out of you. Before long, we're going to be the last one standing.
Welcome everybody to my video. Glad you guys are here. Now, I want to throw this little disclaimer in there before we get into this video. I actually made most of this video hours ago, where I talked about the addition the Lions made to their practice squad. We broke down a little bit of film. We also talked about, the Bengals situation. I gave you as many updates as I could because I wasn't sure if I was going to be home to give you guys the actual injury report. So I have all that done. So I'm just going to leave it like it is, and bam, that's going to be the second half of the video. And we'll talk about all of this. But I'm still here. The injury report is out. So I do want to quickly throw that up and just quickly roll through it because most of this I'm going to talk about in the video anyway, like when we cut to it. But we do have the full injury report for both sides. And there are a couple of updates that I didn't talk about originally, okay? So I want to roll through that real quick, but then we'll get back into it and we'll start diving into the other stuff. Off with the Bengals. Here is the Bengals injury report for Friday. Yesterday was good. Yesterday I had the Lions listed as Wednesday twice, but this is the Friday injury report for the Bengals. And we're really going to talk about that guard position. Right now it's down between either Jackson Carman or it's going to be the backup center Trey Hill going to get that start this weekend. Their starting center Hopkins, he should play. He's listed as in full participation. Phillips, full participation. He's in coming off an illness. Joe Mixon, he's listed as questionable. We're going to talk about him more, but he should play. Joe Mixon, though, is going to play according to Zach Taylor. It could be a little bit limited, but he's going to play according to Taylor. We'll get into that. Deontay Smith with a knee injury has been placed on IR today. He didn't practice yesterday. He has now been placed on IR, okay? So that was possibly going to be the right guard answer with no Carman, but he has been placed on IR. Quentin Spain will play the other guard. Mike Thomas upgraded to full participation, even though he's still listed as questionable. We'll see how that progresses. Joe Burrow's going to play full participation once again. And now Jackson Carman is a new addition to this list because of the COVID situation, which we'll get into. That was just a quick fly through, and then we'll get into it more in a second. Now, quick take a look at the Lions side of things. Corey Ballentine, which we'll get into, has been placed on IR, so he'll be out for 3 weeks. Flowers, once again, limited today, so he'll be questionable for this game, but that's good. It's back-to-back days of practicing. Hockenson, back-to-back days of practicing as well, limited again, and both of those guys listed as questionable. We need them both. Definitely trending the right direction. I think we'll see both. The biggest news, probably the best news we could have possibly got, is that Amani Oruwariye, full participation for the first time this week, and he's listed as in. Not even questionable. He's playing this weekend. Yes, sir. I love that. All right, shout out to Amani. I'm so happy to hear that news. So our number 1 corner will be out there. Jordan Jackson was improved today to full participation. He is in for this game. No questions about that anymore. So he's going to be good to go. DeAndre Swift still listed as questionable, but it's been like this for weeks, and he's played for weeks. So I'm not too worried about it. But we do have Jamar, if for whatever reason he can't go. And finally, Jamal Williams, improvement there from his illness, returned today. Limited participation, but Dan Campbell thinks he'll play this weekend. So I just wanted to throw this injury report in. We'll probably talk about a few of these things in a second again, but I'll go into more maybe detail from when I initially saw it. But we're also going to talk about Brown, our new addition, some of the players that we released. Stay tuned to the end. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see y'all soon. Start off with that right guard position, as this was a spot that we were really looking at throughout the injury report this week, because we still really aren't completely sure who the starting right guard is going to be, but it definitely looks much more clear than it did as we went through this injury report throughout the week. So it was going to be Jackson Carman, right? Heading into this week, you're thinking Jackson Carman, but I believe this week he was actually placed on the COVID reserve list. Who is their backup right guard coming into the season? He took over a few weeks ago, and yeah, he struggled a little bit at that right guard position, but being placed on the COVID reserve list for testing positive, I believe P. Ryan also tested positive. Now, I haven't got any updates on P. Ryan, so we'll kind of just have to wait and see what happens there. I don't know for sure if he's going to be activated off of that list or not, but Jackson Carman was placed on that list, I believe, at the beginning of the week. So now we're looking at the third string right guard, who is Deontay Smith, who today was placed on injury reserve. So Deontay Smith is out for this week and the next couple of weeks with a torn meniscus. You hate to hear that. Hopefully that guy gets better. But we saw yesterday he went from limited participation to no participation, which was not a good sign. And now today he was placed on IR. So now you're looking at your fourth right guard option at that point. And then at Fred Johnson, who was a tackle that played some guard and played some left tackle, right tackle with the Pittsburgh Steelers. You're either looking at that option or their backup center, Trey Hill from Georgia, who really hasn't played right guard since early in his college career. So they were running really low on options. Now their starting center is healthy. You know, we saw that yesterday that he was healthy. So that was good news there, because if you're missing your center and you're using your backup center to play guard, who the heck is playing center, right? But he's healthy, so they're good there. However, today it may have just cleared up. And it was actually noted today it was either going to be Trey Hill that starts at right guard this week or Jackson Carman. Jackson Carman was activated off of the COVID reserve list today, like 3 or 4 hours ago. So he has been taken off that list. He is active. He's available to play in this Sunday's game against the Lions. The thing is, he just really hasn't practiced this week because he's been on this list, which is kind of a big deal. So we'll see how it goes. There's no guarantee he does start because he hasn't practiced. They could go with Trey Hill, who is their backup center, and I'm betting that they probably had him practicing at right guard through this week. So they could go with that option, or they go with Carman, who's already struggled but didn't really practice this week. But it seems like it may have just gotten much more clear on who potentially starts at right guard this week against the Lions. So that's the first update I have with the Bengals. The second one is that they claimed cornerback / safety, he was a safety back in college, Trey Flowers from the Seattle Seahawks. He was recently cut. This is a 26-year-old. This is a big corner, 6'3", 200 pounds, but he struggled with the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, I believe he was benched at one point. He was, saying that the scheme was bad, and it kind of became ugly there, and the Cincinnati Bengals claimed him off of waivers. Now, there were some thoughts that maybe the Lions should go after him. The Lions sat in a spot in waiver claims second, so they could have, if they would have put a claim out, they could have got him, but they didn't. Instead, the Cincinnati Bengals bring Trey Flowers in. I don't necessarily know if he'll play this weekend because, I mean, it's already Friday. He is on the roster, but it's already Friday, so I don't know if he'd really play this weekend, but that's just for cornerback depth. Probably some of that has to do with the fact that Trey Waynes is also on IR now. Also, the big one, Joe Mixon. Now, we've said this all week. He will play on Sunday. According to Zach Taylor, Joe Mixon will play on Sunday, okay? I don't know if that'll be full snaps, but he will play on Sunday. He's been a little bit limited this week. Yesterday, he didn't practice, but he was there, which I thought was a big deal. And he will play on Sunday, according to Zach Taylor, like they said back on Wednesday. So expect to see their top running back out there. Now, behind him, Pirine, I don't know if we're going to see him because he is still on the COVID list, as I know right this second. It may be different by the time you're watching it, but he is on the COVID list as well, like Harmon, and I haven't seen anything yet of him being taken off of that list, which means their starter would be Joe Mixon, and their backup would be the former Michigan Wolverine, Chris Evans. Okay, so those are a couple notes for the Cincinnati Bengals. First off, Kevin Strong, who Dan Campbell discussed today, said Kevin Strong is probably at least another week away. Defensive lineman who is eligible to return off IR. He spent his 3 weeks there, but they don't think he's going to be ready this week. The D-line's played well enough. You got these young guys stepping up. You don't really need it, so they should be fine at that spot anyway. But yes, Kevin Strong, don't expect to see him this weekend. Here's the big one that I was looking for. This is Taylor Decker. All right, we got some interesting news here. So, I mean, there's a lot to kind of dive into. First off, Corey Ballentine, the cornerback who hasn't practiced the last couple of days for the Lions, injured in that Minnesota game. He played some special teams for us. We didn't really see him defensively, but he has been placed on injury reserve today. So they placed him on that list, which opens up a roster spot. So for 3 weeks, he'll be on the list. It opens up a roster spot for the Lions to bring someone like a guy like Taylor Decker off of IR and put him on the roster. They have 21 days to do so. And I don't think the Lions have made that decision yet, and I don't think we're going to get a clear-cut answer today because we didn't today. We may have to just wait till the inactives to see, but I can tell you it's probably not trending in a great direction. We'll get into that in a second. But keep in mind the Lions, remember, they signed Mark Gilbert from the Pittsburgh Steelers, so they do have that. And today they also brought in another cornerback, Shakur Brown, from Michigan State. So we'll get into that in a second. But I want to talk about this Taylor Decker situation. So with Ballentine hitting IR, that does open up the roster spot. So it makes you think that, oh snap, they're doing this to open up that spot for Taylor Decker. And actually, Dan Campbell brought that up today, said, yeah, we have that spot open. If he's ready to go, we can put him in a spot. If not, then, we won't put him in that spot. We can just leave the roster spot open. He didn't get some very optimistic news on the side of practice today, as he did not participate in team drills from what we know right now. He was out there, he stretched, he just wasn't wearing uniform. He went off to the side and did some work with a trainer. Right now, they were just going to go out there and see where he's at, and they'll go from there. They really haven't made a decision on Taylor Decker yet. Now, this week, they have been practicing Penei Sewell at both right tackle and left tackle just to be prepared for if he can play or not. So I don't think the Lions even know yet. It would have been much better news to hear that he practiced again today. Campbell said on Wednesday they had a pretty big club on his hand, and we know he really didn't go through like team drills on Wednesday. It was kind of just more of a walkthrough. Thursday, they, I guess, made the club smaller. I don't know. Maybe they took pieces off it or something. I don't know. They made it smaller, and he practiced a little bit more yesterday, but today he did not practice. Now, Decker's one of those guys that I don't think you need to practice every week. I mean, heck, Carman didn't practice, but Decker's also been out for a little while. Inactives, I think, what is it, an hour and a half. We usually get those before the game, like 11:30. So we'll just kind of have to wait and see where that goes. But it doesn't sound like very promising news. And y'all know how bad I want Taylor Decker back. So this is unfortunate. This one hurt a little bit, but we'll see. You know, now I can't count him out. You know, I can't. Good news, though. Jamal Williams was back today in the building. They said he's looking good. He's feeling good. So Jamal Williams is expected to play on Sunday. He did not practice yesterday. He showed up with an illness, and today he did practice, so he's feeling better. But we were right on the money with that one. But Jamal Williams should play on Sunday. Are we going to get to see Jamar this week? Possibly not, because if they have Swift and Jamal, we don't really need to have Jamar active, but I still want to have him active, you know. And Dan Campbell did say, since Balancing has now hit IR, that they're either going to go with Tom Kennedy or Godwin as the kick returner, which makes me believe that Tom Kennedy will likely be active this week, because they're going to probably activate one of the receivers that we haven't seen a ton this year, just because Cephas is on IR and we're not getting a new player back. We didn't get Tyrell back. So I'm assuming it's going to come down to possibly Geronimo, who they've spoken highly of on the practice squad. McKinley's kind of new, right? They brought him back again this week. And you do have Kennedy. I think we'll possibly see Kennedy active this week. But we'll see what the Lions decide to do there. He could be active, and then we'll see which one gets the kick return attempts. If Kennedy is active, they can make him. If they like him more than Godwin for kick returns, they could go that direction. But I don't know if they do. So we'll see. But it sounds like Kennedy may be active this week. And I think that'd be for the first time this season. They released Darren Paulo off the practice squad, the offensive tackle, which made me feel even better. I'm like, ooh, Taylor Decker's really come back. They released a tackle. But at the same time, they do have Will Holden, who is still on the active. I mean, it doesn't really affect it directly. I'm just hoping, man. I'm using everything I got to hope. In that place, the Lions have went out and signed another Steelers cornerback. This time it's Shakur Brown out of Michigan State. If that name sounds familiar, if I'm messing it up the same way I did back in draft time, you know who we're talking about. The cornerback, the smaller corner out of Michigan State, who was fantastic in his final year with the Spartans. And Lions, I see you doing stuff, okay? I see you, Lions. Both Steelers cornerbacks, both guys that I'm pretty excited about, especially Brown, because I think Brown should have been drafted. He had a lot of hype when he was signed as UDFA to the Steelers. They cut him pretty early. I guess didn't live up to the hype. We'll talk about maybe why. Kansas City picked him up, put him on their practice squad. Now he has landed on the Lions practice squad. So another cornerback to the mix, probably just for depth purposes, but at the same time, they want to leave that roster spot open. So they don't want to put him necessarily on the active roster or the 53-man roster, to say not the active roster, the 53-man roster, if they're still trying to see if Decker can come back or not. So that's a reason to be slightly optimistic about Decker playing this weekend. But who is Brown, if you don't know who he is? Like I said, Michigan State corner, played for 3 years at cornerback, and it was really the final year in 2020 where he started. He was a starter in 2020 for Michigan State, and he was really good. He had 5 interceptions in that season. He only played 7 games. Okay, 7 games, 5 picks. That'll work. Before we get into Brown a ton, I do want to say this. Where's the connection? Why are the Lions grabbing Steelers guys? This is what I was trying to remember. Steelers sounded familiar for some reason from something we did this offseason, but why Steelers cornerbacks? Well, I think I may have it, okay? Bear with me. Their defensive coordinator right now is Keith Butler. He was promoted to that position back in 2015. That is the Steelers defensive coordinator. Now, Keith Butler worked under Dick LeBeau, because before Keith Butler promoted to that position, Dick LeBeau, I'm sure we all know that name, Dick LeBeau was the defensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But if you go way back to Dom Capers, when he was the defensive coordinator of the Steelers back in 1992, he was the DC, and Dick LeBeau was the defensive backs coach in 1992 through 1994. So during that time stretch, they worked together. And Dick LeBeau is one of those guys, as well as Dom Capers, who gets some credit too. But LeBeau is one of those guys that gets a lot of credit for the zone blitz. We talked about it in the offseason, so I won't go super deep into the schematics of it. But that was something that became popular with Dick LeBeau. Dom Capers carried it over. Lions are grabbing these Steelers guys because it's the same philosophy. It's from the same tree, and they feel like it'll fit in and work. All right, so just try to kind of piece it all together. The 3-4 zone blitzing defense, the attacking defense, and I think that's why the Lions are grabbing guys from the style. Plus, they fit the style of these defensive backs. They really do. But let's talk about Brown a little bit here. By the way, NFL Comparisons compared him and as a former NFL player, and they compared Shakur Brown to Aaron Glenn. I thought that was nuts. I'm like, what? This is meant to be. Why didn't they just draft the guy? At Holmes, he made it where he didn't even have to waste the draft pick. He just picked him up. I know y'all are going to cut him. I'll just pick him up, and he'll be impactful for us. So let's talk about him a little bit. 5'10", 185 pounds, definitely a little bit on the smaller side. To put that in comparison, Jerry Jacobs is 5'11", a little bit over 200 pounds. Mark Gilbert's a little bit taller. He was pretty skinny, but he's bulked up a little bit. So Shakur Brown is just a little bit smaller. The way that I kind of look at it is that he has a good style. His play play style for an outside cornerback, but at the same time, he has the build for a slot cornerback, which makes things kind of weird on how do you utilize him, because some of the things that he lacks makes it tough in certain situations to play him as an outside corner. Cool about Shakur Brown is that he was actually from Detroit, Michigan. He was born in Detroit, Michigan. So, I mean, it's just all really meant to be. 17 bench press reps, 4.6, 140, which is definitely on a slower side for a cornerback. 35.5-inch vertical. He's definitely an athlete. He's just a little bit on the slower side, which can cause some issues on the edge. But let's talk about what I take away. First off, he can play inside, outside. He has the slot and outside versatility. Now, when the Steelers brought him in, they had the idea that he would be a slot cornerback. They utilized him as a slot cornerback. And like I said, I think his style, his play style, what he's good at, is actually suited well for the outside. But his build, his speed, maybe even some of his athleticism is more suited for slot or nickel. And I think that's where some issues can come into play. So for the Steelers, he was playing on the inside, while our guy, Mark Gilbert, was also playing on the outside. So they pushed him inside. He didn't look bad. It was kind of hard to find preseason film because you can't. It's not all 22. It's just whack. Definitely has the versatility. So if the Lions ever needed to say, hey, we need another outside cornerback body, or we need another slot cornerback body, this player does a lot of things well, and I think there's some issues that you kind of know as soon as you bring him in. So there's not a lot of big surprise there. You kind of know who he is, but he does a lot of things well. The first thing that sticks off is his motor. Gosh, he's a very emotional player, and we knew that back in the draft time. Like, he leaves, he wears his heart on his sleeve. I know that's, how people say it. That's how he plays. He plays with so much emotion, and sometimes that can get him in trouble, flags, things like that, but he's a very emotional player, and I personally love it. He's attacking, he's feisty, he'll go to battle, he'll smack you off the line of scrimmage. He may be undersized, but he doesn't let that get to him at all. He's gonna hit, he's going to battle. He does have some issues shedding blocks, kind of like Mark Gilbert, but it's not a lack of battle. He's just a little bit undersized, but he's going to go to battle with you as a wide receiver. So I love that side of it. But on the play side of it, first off, let's start with the run defense. Very good tackler. Very, very good tackler. He can take out legs. He'll wrap up. He'll lay some big hits. He's not afraid to tackle, setting the edge, even from the slot position, which seemed a little bit, worse than the outside. But he understands that, forcing things back inside. He's going to go to battle with blockers, which could draw some holding calls. Remember, Jacobs drew one last week for kind of the same reason on a screen. Mentality that he plays with as a run defensive corner. I think coverage is where things get excited, because you can use him in a lot of different ways. A very scheme versatile. You can play him in a zone, play him in man. You can mix up a lot of different zone schemes with him, and he can play him pretty much any kind of defense you want him to. If you want him to get on the line and press, he will do that. Physical off the line. He'll throw you off your route. I watched him versus Illinois and shadow Josh Umatabebe, and you may remember that name from draft time, kind of a lower end of the draft type of prospect, the receiver for Illinois, but it was clearly the number one, and he shadowed him everywhere. Slot, outside, flipping sides of the field. He shadowed this guy, but as soon as they got up and asked him to press, man, he was outsized, but he just did not back down at all. He pressed. He threw off the route completely. He was just going to work.
This play is good and bad. I kind of get some Jacobs vibes, but in a little smaller version, all right? He's holding a little bit here, but he's not going to back down the challenge. I love it. He gets on top. He's going to press you, put his hands on you right off the snap. But you can see he's grabbing a little bit here, but it's not a decisive cut. He's just kind of walking the route, and he's going to stick all over that. No flag was called. Beautiful positioning. He's outmatched. And he set the tone, even though you got to be careful because you might get called for some holding calls, all right? I know it's easy to grab when you're a little bit smaller, but you got to be careful with those things. You don't want those things to come back. Here's kind of another one. This ball doesn't get thrown his way. He kind of tries to run like a fade route here. But again, just getting his hands on him right off the release. And this can slow down the release, but he mirrors the release so well with his feet. He does it with his feet that he can get his hands on you and not whiff. Other guys can try to get their hands, but they whiff. They're in trouble like Gilbert. He's clean at this. This low center of gravity helps him mirroring these releases for receivers because he can put his hands on you like this, but you see how low he gets to the ground. It's tough to shake him off the line and get a lot of separation quickly. But here's where I think you see a little bit of the tweener. This is an outside receiver. This is not the small, shifty slot that he's sticking with off the release. Really good off the release against some of these bigger guys, but the size, then the combination just doesn't work.
Then you could throw him in zone situations, and he has fantastic zone eyes that actually can lead to some issues. If you stare down a certain receiver from the slot or the outside, he's going to make you pay. He gets a little bit greedy, I've noticed at times. Okay, I might as well just call him Williams. No? Okay, stop. Reading the eye so much that he can lose track of his man. Like, if you get a seam route, and his guy is running, let's say, a comeback route on the outside, and that's his guy, but he's playing zone, and he's got his eyes in the backfield. Sometimes he can kind of lose track of his player watching quarterback's eyes. So quarterbacks, I think, with their eyes can get him out of spots. It's not terrible discipline where you can't get back into the play, but he does really bite on quarterbacks' eyes. He gets a little greedy, but it also causes him to make some big plays and take away some routes. I mean, the best cornerbacks, you got to play like that. You want to take timely risks and the right risks, of course, but you have to do it sometimes, right? You got to have that instinct to go make a play on the football, and he has that without a question. So he brings that, and he also played some zone from slot, especially, back early in college, but also with the Steelers as well. They utilize him there. There's no defense. There's no cover scheme that I don't think he can play. I think he can play pretty much every cover scheme you want. If you want him to sit in a cover 2, you want him to sit in a flat, he'll lay the boom on somebody, all right? He's very quick to pick it up. You can put him in pretty much every single coverage that you want him to. Now, that slides me to an issue. He doesn't have that long end speed, and we saw it against Ohio State. We saw a little bit against Illinois. You can get on top of him, and he doesn't really have that kind of recovery speed to get back into it. Let the ball short or high where he can run back into it, and one-on-one against a fast receiver, and just trust him. He may need some safety help over top. He's just not that fast long end. He's quicker than fast, all right? If you know what I mean, like short area quickness, change of direction. Weird little opposite of Gilbert. Gilbert is not that great in the change of direction, short area quickness, so he's more of an outside. But this guy kind of has that build a little bit for slot, but at the same time, I think he's actually better on the outside, which makes it tough because you got to figure out how you're going to utilize him. I think on the outside, his strengths get highlighted much more than they do from the slot position. I think that's why we saw it didn't really work with the Steelers, because from the slot, he's a slot corner, okay. But on the outside, he has traits that not a lot of outside corners do. His strengths is that change of direction, short area quickness. That stands out on the outside because most outside guys don't have that like he does. Really stands out there. And he's physical enough to press you off the line. The issue is he lacks some of the traits and I would say attributes that you kind of need to play on the outside consistent, like the speed, like the size, to shed blocks. All right, he'll tackle, but he doesn't have the long end speed where he can turn and run on a vertical route without safety help. He doesn't have the speed to turn and run probably on a drag route underneath, one-on-one, without safety help. So zone will probably help him a lot more. But at the same time, once you slide him into slot, that's kind of what slot cornerbacks are, right? They're shorter, they're shiftier, and play on the outside, and I think that's where his best is shown, but it's also where his biggest weakness is shown. So it's kind of a risk-reward. That's how I view it. Would say he's got outstanding click and close ability. He can transition back to a full sprint downhill to make a play on the football special. It just separates him from most outside guys. Coaching staff, you have to be very aware if you're going to put him on the outside, who is he going against? What are we asking him to do? And is there a safety help over top? You have to be very aware of those things when you put him on the outside. Really nice vertical, 35.5 inches, and it shows up. I mean, he's a ball hawk. He plays it like a receiver. He floats. He catches passes with his hands. He's really good there at finishing off those plays. It's one thing to get a PBU. It's another thing to pick it off and give it back to us. And he can do that, okay? So he plays it like a receiver. He transitions really well from his back pedal to dropping into coverage. The only thing is that you watch him, he has to transition from a back pedal to a full-on sprint like that. It doesn't take it very much for him to have to completely turn and run with a receiver. And that's where issues occur, because comeback routes, things like that, can bite him because he just doesn't have that top end speed to, kind of jaw with you a little bit. Now he's full on. So some of those hard cutting comeback routes, they can get him some separation because he doesn't have that speed to keep up without going 100%.
Here, Michigan State puts him in a soft zone coverage. He's just in a softer zone. But first mistake, you can't stare down that receiver on him. And you see just that click, close, change of direction, shoot down, make a play.
Size does show up as an issue sometimes. Jump balls, he's pretty good because he has a great vertical and that helps him a ton. But size-wise, just being physically overmatched can show up sometimes as a problem in terms of positioning. Teams like to blitz him a lot. It doesn't seem to have a ton of success because I think when he gets picked up, he doesn't really get off the block. But teams like to blitz him, and I'm assuming it's because he's so high energy. He's a good tackler. He's not the fastest guy, but he's just unfazed. And the Steelers try to do it from the slot. We've seen the Michigan State do it from the outside. They blitz him a ton. So if he ever gets to the active roster, expect them to blitz him a few times. I guess there's some AJ Parker vibes a little bit, if I should say. I think at the outside, he's kind of just a slight in-betweener. He's kind of a slight tweener. If he was a little bit bigger, a little bit faster in the top end, he'd be a beautiful outside cornerback. And I think that's where kind of the in-between issues kind of show up a little bit. When I watch him, man, I really like him. I'm happy we just signed him as a free agent. I liked him back in the draft. I had him on a lot of my mock drafts, take him right towards the end. I don't know if he'll ever find the active roster for the Lions. We'll see, because right now he's only on the practice squad. But I do like the depth, just to give the young guy an opportunity. I'd rather see this than go sign a 29-year-old cornerback who I'm sure will probably never find the field and maybe just doesn't have that upside. I like this. There's upside here. There's a lot to work with this kid. There was a lot of excitement for a reason. I just think he's slightly a tweener. Okay, but hey, Aaron Glenn. You compared to Aaron Glenn. So I'm sure this guy likes him, and I'm sure he's going to like this type of player. The same reason he likes Jacobs is why he'll like Brown, because he's super emotional and he plays really tough. And we'll see. Gilbert is on the roster right now for quarterback depth. But I like what the Lions are doing. We just taking them Steelers guys. I like it. But anyways, Brown has been added to the practice squad. I know a lot of Michigan State fans will be excited. And hey, man, look, I like this dude coming out of draft. So it wasn't even like, if I like him as a Michigan fan, he's doing something right, but we'll see. They'll have to figure out how do they utilize him and what situations do they put him in. Do they put him in more slot, outside? I'm assuming they'd probably use him more at the slot, but I don't know. I mean, you can use him at both, strictly at both. So we'll see how Lions utilize him, but the zone feel is there. He can blitz. He fits that zone blitzing scheme perfectly. And the Lions are running a lot more zone. They need guys that can understand those coverages. This dude will not take long whatsoever to understand it. And I think that's why they grabbed two players from the Steelers with the same background. That way they understand those coverage schemes a lot quicker. Kind of the same reason I think they brought in Parnell Motley from the Broncos, who was with Vic Fangio. Similar reason, not the exact same, but similar. Anyways, that is your Detroit Lions news. I think that's everything, if I'm correct. I think it is. So yeah, that's that. We're good. We're good, right? Yeah, we're good. Okay, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Wait, let me check my page. We're good. Thank you, Brad, for watching, and I'm out.